What's up, everybody? Picture Europe in the 1600s. For centuries, the truth came from one place. The church told you the earth sat still at the center of everything, and kings ruled because God said so. Now watch a handful of thinkers take a wrecking ball to all of it. This is AP European History Unit 4, Scientific, Philosophical, and Political Developments, roughly 1648 to 1815. Here's your map. The scientific revolution rewrites the heavens, the Enlightenment rewrites government and human nature, salons spread the ideas, and even kings start calling themselves enlightened. Stick with me to the very end, and I'll show you the single fastest way to lock all of this in before exam day. Let's get into it. Start with the scientific revolution, because everything else flows from it. The old worldview was geocentric, Earth at the center, backed by the ancient Greek Ptolemy and the Church. Then Copernicus drops the heliocentric model, the sun at the center, and the dominoes fall. Kepler proves the planets move in ellipses, not perfect circles. Galileo points a telescope at the sky, sees moons orbiting Jupiter, and confirms Copernicus was right. The big idea the College Board wants. Authority shifts from ancient texts and the Church toward observation and mathematics. People start asking, what does the evidence actually show? Now the famous clash, and the exam loves it. Galileo's telescope data backed heliocentrism, which contradicted church teaching that placed Earth at the center of God's creation. The Roman Inquisition put him on trial in 1633, forced him to publicly recant, and kept him under house arrest for the rest of his life. Here's the nuance to lock in. This was not science versus religion as total war. Most of these thinkers were devout believers. The conflict was about authority, who gets to define truth, the institutional church or independent investigation. That tension defines the whole period. Then comes the capstone, Isaac Newton. In 1687, he publishes the Principia and ties the whole thing together with universal gravitation, one single law that explains why an apple falls and why planets orbit. The same physics rules the earth and the heavens. Why does this matter so much? Because it proves the universe runs on knowable, predictable, mathematical laws, no constant divine intervention required. If nature follows rational laws you can discover, then maybe society and government do too. Newton hands the next generation their core assumption. Hold that thought, it's the bridge to the Enlightenment. Quick power up on method, because the exam tests these two names directly. Francis Bacon champions empiricism. Knowledge comes from observation and experiment. You reason from specific evidence up to general conclusions. That's inductive reasoning. René Descartes goes the other way with rationalism. Start by doubting everything, then reason from logic, deductive reasoning. His famous line, I think therefore I am. Together Bacon and Descartes give Europe the scientific method, a systematic way to test ideas against reality. Empiricism, evidence first. Rationalism, reason first. Two roads to the same destination. Trust human inquiry over inherited authority. Now the payoff. Thinkers take the scientific method and aim it at society, government, and human nature. This is the Enlightenment, and the core belief is simple. Human reason can discover natural laws governing people, and we can use them to improve the world. Progress is possible. Tradition and superstition are the enemy. These thinkers were called philosophes, French for philosophers, though they were really public intellectuals. They challenged absolute monarchy, the privileges of the church, and the idea that things must stay the way they've always been. Everything downstream, revolutions included, starts here. Lock in the heavy hitters, because the exam will name them. John Locke, natural rights, life, liberty, and property, plus the tabula rasa, the mind is a blank slate shaped by experience. Voltaire, religious toleration and freedom of speech, he hammered the church's abuses. Montesquieu, separation of powers into branches that check each other, which shapes the US Constitution. Rousseau, the social contract and the general will, legitimate government comes from the will of the people. Adam Smith, laissez-faire economics, let the free market run itself. And Diderot compiled the encyclopedia to spread all of it. Memorize the name plus the one idea, that's the move. Now, a piece the exam rewards if you know it. The Enlightenment preached reason and rights, but mostly left women out, so some pushed back. Mary Wollstonecraft writes, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman in 1792, arguing women possess the same reason as men and deserve equal education. That's an early feminist argument, lock it in. And here's where ideas actually spread. The salons. These were gatherings, often hosted and run by elite women, where philosophes, writers, and aristocrats debated new ideas. Salons were the engine of what we call the public sphere, a space outside the state where people formed opinions on politics and society. Stay on this, because the College Board cares about how ideas moved, not just what they were. Enlightenment thought didn't stay in a few brilliant heads. It spread through the salons, coffee houses, cheap printed pamphlets, and Diderot's encyclopedia, which packaged knowledge for anyone who could read. This network is the public sphere, ordinary educated people, the growing middle class, discussing politics and questioning authority outside the control of king or church. For the first time, public opinion becomes a real force. And once people start debating whether their rulers are legitimate, the ground is shifting under every throne in Europe. Now, the twist the exam loves: some monarchs embraced Enlightenment ideas, but kept their absolute power. This is enlightened absolutism, rulers who used reason to strengthen the state, not to give up control. 3 to know. Frederick the Great of Prussia called himself the first servant of the state, promoted religious toleration and legal reform, but kept the army and his throne. Catherine the Great of Russia corresponded with Voltaire, expanded education, yet tightened serfdom after a major peasant revolt. Joseph II of Austria went furthest, abolished serfdom and granted religious toleration, but his reforms were so forced they mostly collapsed. Reform from the top down, power firmly intact. Lock in how these three compare, because that's a classic exam question. All three used Enlightenment ideas to modernize and centralize, that's the shared move. But each had limits. Frederick reformed law and tolerated religion, yet preserved Prussia's rigid social order. Catherine taught liberal, expanded culture and education, but after Pugachev's rebellion, she actually made serfdom harsher to keep the nobles loyal. Joseph was the true believer, ending serfdom and asserting state control over the church, but he moved too fast, and the nobility rolled it back after his death. The pattern: enlightened on paper, absolute in practice. Reason served the state, not the people. Zoom out to everyday life, because society was shifting under all this. A growing literate middle class, the bourgeoisie, gained wealth and wanted a political voice to match. Reading expanded, newspapers and novels spread, and consumer culture grew with coffee, tea, and sugar from global trade. Faith in reason and progress reshaped how people saw childhood, education, even crime and punishment, push for reform, not just tradition. The deeper change is mental. People increasingly believed the world could be understood and improved by human effort, rather than simply accepted as God's fixed order. That secular, reform-minded outlook is the soil revolutions grow in. And that's AP Euro Unit 4. The scientific revolution from Copernicus to Newton's universal gravitation, Bacon and Descartes building the scientific method, the Enlightenment philosophies, Locke, Voltaire, Montesquieu, Rousseau, Smith, and Diderot, Wollstonecraft and the salons, spreading it through the public sphere, and enlightened absolutists like Frederick, Catherine, and Joseph, reforming from the top while keeping their crowns. You just covered the whole thing. But here's the truth: watching is not the same as knowing. Head to AIM 5 and practice Unit 4 for free, with instant feedback on every question. Links below. Now go get that 5, and I'll see you in Unit 5.